Alright, here we are with our little guessing game. We had changed the secret number so it was a random number between 1 and 10, so that should make our game a little bit better. But one problem we have still here is that with the regular dim statement, the lifetime of this variable is only as long as this click event's going on. I mean, we had talked about scope before, so scope meant that it only exists in here, but lifetime's a little bit different thing also. And we'll show that and explain what's going on here. So let's put a breakpoint in here so we can watch what's going on here. Actually, I want to move that up there. So if I run this now, and I'm going to guess 7, one thing we can see in here is, okay, secret number is 5. So my guess is too high, right? So it should go through here, give me the feedback that my guess is too high. Okay, it said my guess is too high, so I'm going to guess lower. And we saw that the secret number before was 5. Let me put 4 in here. Now watch, here we are watching in our debugger because this breakpoint's in here. As it comes through, it's going to run that dim statement again and create a new secret number. So now the secret number is 4. And in this situation, I may have never, I never really would have realized something goofy was going on here because I just got it right. The first one said it was too high, then it said I guessed it. But because we were watching in the background, we noticed that the first run the secret number was 5, the second time the secret number was 4. Really, that could cause a problem. If I played this a few times, I would get some feedback that didn't make sense, and I would wonder what the heck's going on here. And that's because the lifetime of this variable, when it got to the end of the event here, and it went out of the event, that variable was gone. So now it started all over. The next time I click the check guess click event up here, it went through and the dim statement assigns a whole new secret number. As we can see, that doesn't really work. Okay? Now, there is something, what we could do that would work is we could move this to be global, right? Then it would not, but I can't, one problem is I can't put the randomize up there. It doesn't work outside of there is one problem. And secondly, really we want to keep things as locally as we can when we can, okay? So if I need to keep this, let me just do a few undos here. If I want to keep this local, how can I do that and not let it create a new secret number anytime? Well, the answer to that is we have what's called static variable declaration. So what happens here when this variable is declared statically and is set equal to that is it will run that line of code the first time and create a secret number. So it created a secret number of 6 right there, right? And so we'll see, get my feedback here, which was 7, it's too high, right? And so if I change this, though, to 5 here, one thing we'll notice here as we watch through the debugger here now, when it goes through the static number thing, I know it went through that, but see that green line there? It did not let that be recreated. So it's still 6, even the second run of there. So when we put static in there, basically what we say is your scope is local, you're only going to exist in here, but your lifetime exists throughout the whole program. In other words, once this line, this static line has been done once, it's not going to re-perform the operations in that line. Okay, so that's where we get to that static variable declaration can be helpful for us as far as limiting, or I should say extending the lifetime of a variable and not allow it to be refreshed each time it hits a dim statement like when a dim statement does it. Okay, now another time that we want to use static variables is, let's say we want to have a counter in here, and same thing, I want to count how many guesses it takes, or I want to keep track of how many guesses it takes for the user to get this right. So I could say static int number of guesses as integer, and we always should tell a static variable implicitly, or explicitly I should say, what it's equal to when we create it. Now, this would default to 0 if I didn't say that, but a static variable, when someone reads your code, it should always be obvious that that's a static variable and that you've expressly set it to be something when it starts out. Okay? So we're going to say just sets the counter for guesses. And what we would want to do somewhere in this event, we could do a lot of things. We could just have a counter for the number of low guesses, and then we would put our counter just inside this else if, so it wouldn't get added to unless it went inside there. We could have a counter just for too high a guesses. We would put the counter equation inside of this else if, but since we're just counting the total number of guesses, what we can just do in here is add it really anywhere, and this is going to be int number of guesses equals itself. So starts out at 0, it's going to equal 0 plus 1 each time, right? And then what we could also do here real quick is let's just add another label in here so that we could see this. And I'll just, for the sake of speed here, I'm just going to leave it up there in the top corner, and this is going to be LBL guess counter. And I would take the text out of there, but I'll just leave it in for the sake of time here. So then at the end of this whole thing, we would want something that's displaying that. So guess counter text equals the number of guesses. So each time this runs, now here again it's static, so it's set to 0. Once it gets set to 0, it won't reperform this line. So, because if it did, if it was a regular dim statement and our counter kept going back to 0, that would kind of be a problem, right? So let's run this real quickly here. Guess 7. Sorry, it's too high. Notice that my guess counter went up there. I would do something kind of more that would be a better explanation of what that number is up there, obviously, if this was my program, but it's just keeping track. It's just counting how many times I made a guess and putting that up in the upper left-hand corner. Okay, so counters are another time when we want to use static variables. All right, so the use of static variables can be very helpful if you have a variable that's holding something that can't change over time, or if so that would be the case in this random number creator. We can't, once that's created, we can't let it change to something new. Okay, and secondly, it's also good for counters, which we can't let that get reinitialized back to 0. We're trying to keep track of something, and if it got reinitialized all the way back to the default value, it wouldn't be able to keep track of that value. So very helpful tool for some of the things we need to do.